Hey guys, Cam315 back at it with another video for you guys, and I'm back with I think it's the third Bears video of the week. My goodness, man. I feel like every freaking week, man, it's always something with the Chicago Bears, dude. It's always something with the Chicago Bears. Unless we got some more news tomorrow on Thursday. This video obviously is going up on Thursday morning, but you get my point, right? But regardless, the reason why I didn't talk about this news and anything any faster because I was at work, and then by the time I got home, it was like 7:50 p.m. going on 8 p.m. And then when I ate my dinner, finally chilled and collected myself, it's now basically 8:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, mind you, going on 9 p.m., right? And I'm probably gonna like get some little mini gaming in and then go into sleep before I gotta go back up and get ready for work again. It's this long cycle. I don't like 9 to 5 jobs. 9 to 5 jobs suck. Anyways, some news came out of Hallis Hall. The Bears have obviously had some interesting things to say today. Eberflus had some interesting things to say today. We got introduced to Thomas Brown, Bears' new OC, replacing Shane Waldron. We got basically the thoughts of Caleb and DJ Moore. We also got the thoughts of Keenan Allen and things like that. Um, and then finally, just now, um, the Bears finally cut bait with Nate Davis. Are we serious? Are we serious? You know what? Actually, I, I, I might as well start that off now. Start that off now. So the Bears this morning essentially announced that they are finally cutting and relieving Nate Davis of his duties. It takes this man basically telling the team and faking essentially a back injury because he knew the team basically relied upon or needed him in a time of need. And he was like, I don't want to be there right now. Um, hey coach, my back kind of hurts. It's flaring up. I'll just stay at home, okay? Yeah, and the coaching staff clearly sent him home, and that was basically their breaking straw. That was their breaking point. So they cut him this morning. They eat the whatever dead money they got to eat, and that's basically it. Now, if my Uncle Daryl was on the video, um, he'd probably be celebrating for joy the fact that Nate Davis is no longer on this roster. It's an absolute joke that Nate Davis, what for one, finally is now relieved and cut. It is about dang time. They finally cut him. Nate Davis was an absolute failure of a free agent signing by Ryan Poles. And that is another miss on Ryan Poles. Another miss. And it's embarrassing at the fact that he was managed to be on this roster for this amount of time. The fact that he was on this roster till November 13th is a joke. Let me go refresh your memory for anybody that doesn't remember Nate Davis. He first came here last year, and he was one of the big free agent acquisitions the Bears made last year to try to fix the offensive line. Now, he came over from Tennessee. Everybody, mostly Tennessee fans, made the mention and talked about how the fact that, and coming over from Tennessee is the fact the reason why Tennessee didn't, or basically let him walk for nothing, and they didn't resign him. That's basically came down to an issue in terms of how much he wants it. How much is, how much does he love the game, and, him being basically lazy, as from what they were saying. The Titans obviously knew he was a really good player on game days, but the only problem was his preparation for games was very lazy. He'd be very lazy in practice. very laissez-faire, and the coaches, and at the time it was Mike Vrabel, they had enough of him, and they were just like, you know what, we don't want you to be a problem. Now, the thing that they were able to somewhat deal with it is the fact that when he played in games, he actually showed up in games and he actually played pretty damn hard. So Ryan Poles made the signing, which was essentially a risk signing of saying, well, maybe we can fix that lazy attitude with a coach that I so desperately believe he's hard nosed and he'll get these guys to hustle and play. And Nate Davis barely plays last season. And when he did play last season, he was god awful. And then he was out an extended period of time because he had an unfortunate death in the family due to his mother passing away. And you can make the argument that had an effect on his mentality. And it had a massive effect on his mentality as a football player. So, okay, fine. Whatever happened, and you kind of let him off the hook a bit, right? But even then, if you go to any of my game recaps with my Uncle Daryl and me, we were kind of like, okay, dude, I don't think it should be this big of a deal that, listen, you know, and I understand the sensitivity. It's always hard to lose a family member, and and the man lost his mother. I think that's something that any man would struggle with because they're losing the person, or they lost the person that basically gave them life, essentially, that birthed them into the world. And for all intents and purposes, we didn't know how close Nate Davis was with his mother. He might have been very close, and he might have been very shaken up and broken up about that. But me and my uncle always made the mention that we were kind of like, okay, I don't like the way how the Bears are handling it. Like it was always on and off if he would be at practice or be available for a game. And I remember like last year, like legitimately, I remember last year at some point we were saying like, look, man, the organization at some point might need to step in and just be like, dude, go take care of yourself. Go take the rest of the year off, or go take like maybe 2 to 3 weeks off, and then be ready to come back. It was always off and on again, and then his play wasn't really good. So I attribute it to the fact that, well, it had to do something with his mother's death. Then this upcoming off season, well, there was no more, okay, you're getting let off the hook, you got an excuse. No. And the fact that this guy really legitimately didn't really do much of anything, he was mostly not doing nothing during the training camp portion of the season. And that basically lived on the way on. And then obviously it affected the play. And he played pretty damn bad football when he had gotten in. And basically, you could tell that the Bears ended up getting tired of his behavior to the point they started making him inactive, or he wasn't actually a starter. They actually made Pryor a starter, and he was benched essentially. And then slowly, little bit surely, as the last few weeks came, he started becoming a healthy scratch, and he ended up becoming inactive. And then obviously that leads to today, where he basically, or led to Sunday, to where because of all the injuries to the offensive line, basically the Bears were low on numbers because they had like six offensive linemen going to that game. And they basically needed him to more than likely suit up and probably start. And basically, Nate Davis gives the excuse of like, "Oh, well, my back kind of hurts. I don't think I can do it, coach." And essentially, from what the report said, they basically told him to go home. And 2 days later, he ends up finally, no, 3 days later, he ends up getting cut by the Bears. Are we freaking serious now? Are we freaking serious? This was a failure on Ryan Poles. Another bad contract dished out to a player that, well, got away because of the system. Because a head coach that this said GM loves and trusts so dang much that he will handle any chaos that happens in the building with utter and fast and important action. He let a lazy, that head coach let a lazy offensive lineman basically take off and not do much of anything. And because of it, it was deserved that he lose his job. And I was saying this for the past few weeks. Just cut him. I said the same thing with Velus Jones. I just said, listen, if you're going to make him healthy and active scratches because he fumbled the ball off a kickoff return the very first game of the season, just cut him and be done with him. He won't be your problem no more. Just admit you were wrong and move on. It took Ryan Poles more legitimately a long time, like around week 6 or 7, to finally admit, okay, we need to cut this guy. We just need to cut bait with this guy because it just ain't working. He wasn't producing. The same thing could have been said about Nate Davis. He wasn't doing much of anything. He was being a cancer in the locker room with his lazy attitude during practices. And realistically, it just felt to me he was there getting a paycheck. So at that point, I'm just like, look, man, don't even look for a trade partner because who's going to trade for a lazy offensive lineman? Nobody's going to want an offensive lineman that is lazy and gives poor effort. Just cut him and be done with it. Frickin' send the message to the rest of the offensive line. We will not tolerate this crap. Cut him now, eat the dead money, and admit that was a bad contract dished out. Did Ryan Poles do that? No. He waited until week 10, essentially, of the season to realize he's just dead weight. He ain't helping us. He's more of a negative than a positive. We need to cut this guy. And now he's officially cut. When I go back at the Nate Davis thing, it's simple. I've already talked about the failure about Ryan Poles, and this goes into the whole fact that Ryan Poles, his problem is the guys he signs or he drafts that are just, let's be honest, flat out bust. He sticks with these things, these people, too damn long. And when he finally makes the decision, it's too little, it's too late. Example cannot be made. Ryan Poles' problem, again, I've said it multiple times. I've even said it with my uncle on the channel. Ever since I saw that clip in Hard Knocks when the one safety who was vying to make the main roster didn't make the main roster, and Ryan Poles had to have that sit-down meeting to inform him that he was being cut. The fact that the man had to walk away so he could go to his, I guess, office restroom to probably like wash the tears out and get it out the way because apparently he was coming back crying. And the dude is just sitting, and the player's just standing there like, I understand why you brought me in here. You don't need to take your long time. Like, just let me know that I didn't make the team. And obviously, the guy was very graceful. I forgot the player's name, but the guy was very graceful about it. But you have it where Ryan Poles is basically crying his eyes out that he's gonna cut a guy. And I'm just watching this and I'm like, dude, why are you crying over cutting a guy that just didn't make the team? All you gotta do is tell him, hey man, I really enjoyed your presence here. I enjoyed your work ethic here in training camp, but I hate to inform you, as much as I had a lot of faith and belief in you, we're gonna have to make the decision that you won't make the full roster. Thank you. If there's an opportunity to bring you back next year and maybe we can see, maybe you can make the team. I would love to have you back in the building and and hopefully maybe things work out better next go around. But best of luck in your future endeavors. Hopefully a team finds you and signs you and you continue to work hard. And I hope to see you maybe next year if we end up signing you to a contract, right? No, he doesn't do that. Ryan Poles legitimately walks away and he has to go to the bathroom to basically get tissue paper to blow his nose and and basically wipe his tears because he's crying about a guy that's just gonna get cut. And when I saw that scene, I'm like, dude, Why are you crying over this guy? I'm like, business is business. He wasn't crying. This was a guy that's been cut multiple times throughout his career. At this point, it's probably he's probably disappointed, but he's like, it's all right, maybe I'll find something. I gotta keep the belief because he had his weird beliefs and everything. I'm not gonna judge, but yeah, I thought he was frankly weird. But like, I saw that and I'm just like, this guy is not cutthroat. He's crying over a player being cut. I appreciate what he did for the running back that I thought honestly was probably going to make the team over Valus realistically, but then he ended up having the ACL injury, and I think his name was Ian Booker or something. And okay, that's fine. That's a nice deal he gave him. But when I'm seeing him get emotional over a simple cut of a player. That just tells me, like, dude, you're not cutthroat enough. You're not an actual dog in the building that is willing to be, no, we got to get rid of this guy. And that's why he kept guys like Bayless Jones, why he kept guys like freaking Nate Davis around. Also, too, why he let Shane Waldron not go away and not just go up to Eberflus and say, dude, you got to get rid of him. It's time to fire Waldron because he ain't doing nothing for us. Because realistically, Waldron should have been fired after the Commanders game for that one call alone, giving the ball to Doug Kramer. That's when he should have got fired. But no, we didn't want to fire him. And obviously, when they fired him, too little, too late. And you're doing this going into your rivalry week. When instead, if you fired him earlier, if you even fired him after the Cardinals game, you're having him prepare against the page. You're having Thomas Brown prepare against the dang Patriots, not the Green Bay Packers. And that's unfair to Thomas Brown because you're making him have to come up with some sort of game plan before you play your hated rivals. That's the problem with Ryan Poles. He's not cutthroat enough. And he wasn't cutthroat enough with the Bayless Jones situation. He wasn't cutthroat enough with the Nate Davis. The only time he was actually cutthroat was with Chase Claypool when they were actually just fed up with him straight up. And they immediately got him up out of the building. The funny part is he talked about that. If you remember last season, he actually had a whole press conference as to why he traded away Chase Claypool. This year, of all the hecticness going on in the building, he doesn't meet the meeting to explain why he made the decision to help Flus make the decision to cut Shane Waldron and then cut obviously guys like a Nate Davis. Nope. Today would have been a perfect day to hear from Ryan Poles to ease the questions and ease you well he won't be able to ease the fan base, but essentially show his face and tell the fan base, listen, we understand there's a lot of stuff going on and the season's not playing out the way we planned it. We had figured it was going to be, and we've had some brutal losses the last 3 games. But we gotta there's still a long season, and I have to have trust that my coaching staff can turn this around and they can do their jobs. And obviously, we're evaluating on a week by week basis. And when the decision and if there was any questions that he was asked about Eberflus's job status, that's when he replied and said, "Look, I understand. He's been coming under fire and he's been getting all this thing, and obviously what happened in the game with the fans chanting for his removal. But I just want to be honest. Right now, we are not going to make any decision to make a change at head coach until." And we will evaluate it until the end of the season. And then if there is any changes at the head coaching position, you'll be the first one to know. But until then, if there is any event of any changes of any positions to the head coaching position at this team, it will be dealt with at the end of the season. And we are evaluating on a week by week basis, a game by game basis. That's all you have to say. That's all you have to say. But Ryan Poles didn't come out and meet the media like he did last year. Hold on a quick second. Okay, back. But you get my point about Ryan Poles. And then on the coaching standpoint from Nate Davis, my whole thing is this, man. They should have corrected this This behavior simply, they should have corrected this behavior last year. Plain and simple. They should have corrected this behavior last year. And what I mean by that is they should have basically told this guy, I'm like, okay, you clearly have a very impactful death in the family, okay? You have 2 to 3 weeks. We're gonna give we're gonna give you. See, this is what Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus should have did. They should have told Nate Davis, listen, you got 2 weeks to mourn over the loss of your mother. After those 2 weeks are off, we want you here first Monday after the 2 weeks are over, and you're ready to come to work. That's what they should have did. That's what they should have did. And they should have told him, if you are gone past that Monday, we will start fining you this amount of money if you do not show up. But no, they basically held his hand through this situation. And when training camp and all this other stuff was happening, and he was being lazy and stuff like that, they didn't punish him. Eberflus never went to this dude and told him, we need you out there. Get your pads on, get in the practice. You're doing nothing here. Get ready. Otherwise, I will go up to Ryan and I'll personally make sure to know that you are a problem out there. And we'll make it funny. And if you don't want to be out there, we'll start fining you. And if you want to keep being lazy and you're taking the fines, well, then we'll do something else. We'll just cut you and be done with it. So, you just have it to where Nate Davis was just lazy his entire Chicago Bears tenure. And maybe it was the fact that he had his death in the family that affected that. Or maybe it's just from the standpoint the man got his bag and then he's like, well, I'm chilling. I got 30 mil. I'm good. I don't have to work I don't have to work my ass off because, when he first came in the league and he was with the Titans, he had to work his tail off to make sure he got to the opportunity to get paid. And don't know, man. It's like ever since he got paid, I don't know. He just wasn't in it. And again, maybe the death in the family affected the way how he viewed playing the game and he just lost the love of the game. Well, guess what? That's a Nate Davis problem. Now, clearly, it'll be interesting to see what team potentially signs him. Honestly, if I was the team, I probably would not sign him. His career might be over. His career might be over. The only way I can see a team signing him is if they're that desperate to sign an offensive lineman. But from the fact that a hard coach like Mike Vrabel said, well, yeah, we're just gonna let him go because he's lazy, and they were stuck and they were sick of it, well, that just tells you that clearly what Mike Vrabel said a few years ago was correct. Nate Davis is just a lazy excuse of a human being. I feel for him and his loss, but at some point you have to come to work. And he just didn't come to work. He was just happy getting paid his money, and he was happy that he got the check in the mail, and he realized he couldn't do anything. He didn't need to do anything. Nate Davis, it reminded me of, I forgot the one Bears player, but it reminded me of the one Bears player who he ended up leaving the Bears or whatever, or during the COVID season. I think he got hurt or whatever. And he just enjoyed, or it was just because of COVID strictly, he enjoyed just being on his couch. And he never really bothered to come back to work. I forgot what player, I forgot what his name was. But he came out of Florida. He came out of Florida State. Oh, Eddie Goldman. Eddie Goldman. That's who it was. This Nate Davis situation reminded me a lot of the Eddie Goldman situation. Eddie Goldman was a really damn good defensive player for the Bears. And then shit turned around the moment 2020 hit. And when 2020 hit, I don't know what happened. He just enjoyed living on the couch and everything. And I think he got hurt at some point, and he just enjoyed being on the couch. And he enjoyed being on the couch so much he never came back from it. And he was very bad when he came back, and he did not improve. And man, his career was over. He tried to make a comeback with the Falcons, but even then he wasn't good. And now guess what? He probably somewhere on the couch doing nothing. He that's what that was the vibes Nate Davis gave me. Now coming out of the situation. He was just another Eddie Goldman, a player that got too comfortable sitting on the damn couch because he knew he was getting paid. And he knew, oh, I kind of like this couch potato type of thing. I'm getting paid by the Bears. I'm good. Maybe I don't have to work that hard. And, Eberflus is a soft ass coach. He won't care. That's another indictment on the coach. The coach allowed this to happen. The coach allowed this to happen. That's the culture he built. The same culture where you got other players walking all over what you're doing and what you're saying. Plain and simple, man. Plain and freaking simple. Just like with Matt Nagy, he allowed it to happen with Eddie Goldman. Same thing happened with Nate Davis and Matt Eberflus. This is the problem that I'm talking about with the Bears. This is why they need to fire Matt Eberflus. They just got too many nice guys. They need an assertive coach that is willing to hold these players accountable and that is going to be cutthroat with these guys and tell them, like, look, man, you won't be ready? Fine. I'll just go up to I'll go up to the boss's office and we'll just see if we can do something about that. Maybe we can hit you in the pocketbooks. Or maybe we'll just cut you and you won't get your money. So the Bears eat a dead cap, take a cap hit because of it, and props to them. Admitted the mistake. Props to Ryan Poles for admitting a mistake on a signing that he should have never made, probably. But the problem is you cut him too late. And second of all, that's an offensive lineman you're being cut that you paid a lot of money to bring here to be a focal point of your offensive line. So that's another offensive lineman that you failed to evaluate that would have a positive return on your investment. So far, the only positive return on your investment is Darnell Wright, and he's regressed this year. And you hope he doesn't regress going into the rest of the season, nor he doesn't regress going into year 3. You need him to progress, not regress. Progress and get better and be an all Pro Bowl caliber player. But he's regressing, mostly because you didn't the offensive line coach. Speaking of coaches, Eberflus talked with the media. I'm not going to talk about everything he went over, but some points that he made a mention. He made a mention that he made the decision that Shane Waldron needed to go. Now, personally, if you ask me, if you knew that Shane Waldron needed to go and you had to come to this decision to do it, why didn't you do it after Monday? Or why didn't you do it after Sunday? Why didn't you do it that Monday morning? But see, remember, on Monday morning, when he had the flame out with David Kaplan over the phone, and then in the press conference that Monday morning, he said he needed 24 to 48 hours to think about it, right? No, that decision should have been made on Sunday evening. And then you should have had that meeting with Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, and George McCaskey for whatever reason. I'll speak about that in a second. That's when you should have that meeting about Shane Waldron and said, and then you could have had this council meeting and said, where you say, oh, I'm unsure about, what Shane has done and everything. And if Kevin and Ryan were just like, look, man, you got to cut loose. This guy's not doing anything for us. I'm going to completely ignore George. He'd probably just be like, whatever they say. But if Kevin and Ryan were saying, let him go. It's not working. Like the meeting should have happened on Sunday evening. And then guess what? Eberflus comes out and says and announces after a decision has been made, we've effectively removed Shane Waldron from his duties. He will no longer be the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. We promoted Thomas Brown to be the offensive coordinator. We made this decision Sunday night. I made the decision alongside Ryan. I'm like alongside Ryan, Kevin, and George, and I brought Shane Waldron into the office this morning, and I relieved him of his duties. But no, It takes him till Wednesday. Takes him till Wednesday to finally announce the firing, or Tuesday to announce the firing, and Wednesday to speak on it. The fact that it took this man 24 to 48 hours to realize he needed to fire his offensive coordinator is absolutely embarrassing. He probably gets just as emotional as Ryan Poles when it comes to cutting guys, because we see how hard he fights for his coaches. We see almost all the time he does not take accountability for himself. He blames the players, if anything, because they're not executing. We know how much he backs the coaches and how much he doesn't want to fight. He had regrets on firing Luke Getsy. He had to be talked into firing Getsy from Ryan Poles. And the same thing was probably in this situation, because there was rumors that apparently they were going to keep Eberflus wanted to keep Waldron and just move him up to the booth. And then you later find out from Thomas Brown himself, he's going to be up top in the booth. Coincidence? I think not. We know Eberflus didn't want to fire Waldron because he knew if he knew he fired Waldron, that would only mean his seat gets even more hotter. And then guess what? People are going to be like, oh, we're not going to really look at the interim offensive coordinator. We're going to look at you. That's the reason why Eberflus wanted to keep Waldron on the staff, because he knew if he fired Waldron, then getting a third offensive coordinator, that only means, guess what? I'm probably next on the list if things don't get fixed and they don't turn around immediately. And that means my ass is gone. But guess what? That ain't happening. And he had this council meeting with Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, and George McCaskey. Now, if you're wondering, why is George McCaskey in this meeting to determine the fate of your offensive coordinator that's just been god awful all season long, and that's coming from the same owner of the team that quote unquote said he is a fan in a literal press conference and he doesn't really know football. He is just a fan. Why is this guy in the room making or assisting with making a football decision that is going to impact the team? Why? I keep trying to say that McCaskies continuously try to say that they're going to let Ryan do what he needs to do. Well, then let him do what he needs to do and let him run the team. Why are you in the building? Why are you in this meeting? I understand. It's probably in the best interest. You want to let your owner know, hey, George, we're going to let you know me, Kevin, and Matt are going to have a meeting about Shane. There's a good chance we might come out of this with a decision of just letting him go and relieving him of his duties. We want to let you know that if that's okay with you, and we just want to be cool with that. And if George, and all George got to say, okay, do what you need to do. That's fine. But no, George has to be involved in these meetings. And I'm sorry, I would love to be a fly on the wall to see what they were talking about. And I would love to see what type of input George gave. Quote unquote, I'm just a fan. I don't know nothing about football decisions or football. Yet this man's great grandfather was the freaking NFL freaking or his not great grandfather. His grandfather was essentially the guy that created the NFL, and he has no idea knowledge of football. How the hell are you know what you're doing, but your grandfather was the creator of the NFL? That's what doesn't make any sense. That makes absolutely no sense for about the McCaskey Hallis family. How the heck does the creator of the NFL basically create this franchise, the Bears, and essentially creates the NFL, but his family tree after him don't know dog shit about football. They just became essentially business accountant salespeople. You would think if I was ever a part of a ownership group that had a family, I would probably love to enjoy and see and pick my grandfather's brain or anybody in my family's brains father, my any of the brains of my families who were successful at their business in terms of running an organization, and just being like, okay, How did you do this for the sport of the team and everything? No, he just became a sales accountant and a ticket taker because that's what everybody says. He was just basically a ticket salesperson. Now, what the hell is an owner doing to become a ticket sales individual? He should actually be understanding how to learn the game of football and get it from his grandfather. Like, hey, Grandpa Hallis, you know, um, Grandpa George, how did you how did you get started and how did you understand and how did you build a winner in the Bears? That's what he should have been doing. But George McCaskey is in this council meeting to determine the fate of Shane Waldron. Again, I would love to be a fly on the wall to see if he actually had any input. From what we always hear is that George just basically is like, all right, do what you want. So maybe they just wanted him in the meeting just to know and see this conversation. But legitimately, I feel like it had to probably be Kevin Warren and maybe Ryan Poles that told Eberflus, Matt, we know you want to keep Shane, but sorry, the results proved themselves, and he keeps putting himself in a position where it costs the football team. These guys are not listening to him. These players are not listening to him. We're gonna do what's in the best interest of the Bears. You may not like it, but we're going to let him go. And Matt just had to agree. Because guess what? What is he gonna tell them? No. Because if that's the case, then if I was either Ryan or Kevin, I'd be like, okay, then if you don't like the decision, we'll just let you go with him too. So of course, Eberflus says, of course, sorry, Eberflus is going to want to keep his job because he's still going to get paid a lot of money to be the head coach of this team. And that's the thing. So they had this council meeting, I guess on Monday, and they made the decision on Tuesday, and they thought, okay, that we got to do what we got to do. It's a joke. Shane Waldron should have been fired after the Commanders game. The fact it took this long to fire him, I don't understand. And this dude this dude Eberflus, he's been on this whole freaking guilt trip of finally taking accountability for everything. Because in this press conference, he talked about how he takes accountability for having 3 offensive coordinators essentially in one goddamn year. Luke Getsy, Shane Waldron, and now Thomas Brown. And he goes over there on the podium and is like, yeah, I take complete accountability because I'm the head coach of this team. That should not be happening under me because that just tells me that results are not happening and I'm not hiring the right people. Now, really, now you want to take accountability. He's been on this accountability, I take accountability, since he wouldn't take accountability for a stupid Hail Mary. It's clear Bears PR told him, hey, a lot of people on the outside are upset that you did not take accountability for your game call from the play before the Hail Mary and the Hail Mary play as well. What did the PR team to tell him? Start taking accountability. Start telling the fans, start telling the public, are going to start taking accountability for that. It started with that stupid post halftime interview where he basically said, I called a pass defense instead of a run defense, and that's on me. I take accountability for that. And ever since then, he's been saying that. Him saying accountability every single time to me sounds forced. And it sounds like he actually doesn't mean that. Because he was told to say, you have to take accountability. No, it would be genuine and it would mean more if 3 weeks ago you had told me, no, I take accountability for giving up those 13 yards. I take accountability for not having my defense ready on the Hail Mary. I take accountability for not seeing what Tyreek Stevenson was doing and calling a timeout so I can make sure he's in the game. If not, I would have taken him out. But now him always saying accountability this, accountability that, it feels forced. It feels like you're just saying this just to say this to try to be put in good graces because that's what the PR of the Chicago Bears want you to say to try to think that, oh, we'll be on your good side now because you're finally taking accountability. BS. We're even more pissed off that you're now saying this, and it feels forced because you didn't want to admit it 3 weeks ago after a Commanders game you should have never lost. So he's taking accountability and all this crap. And I just want to say this. Having three offensive coordinators in one single year is absolutely embarrassing. And that should already automatically tell you you should have been removed from your job. But no, he gets another chance. He gets another last ditch effort. He made Shane Waldron be the scapegoat so he could continue on. In reality, him and Shane Waldron should have both been shown the door at the same exact time. But Ryan Pauls probably break down in a whole freaking baby crying fest if he fired Ryan Pauls, his best friend. And it's funny because I was watching the Tapes Never Lie network and they came up with a video where 10 months ago, Ryan Pauls was talking about Eberflus being able to handle everything that would have ever happened in a crisis situation. And every single point in that video that the Tape Never Lie network did 10 months ago that Ryan Pauls talked about, the reason why he brought back Matt Eberflus for a third year, or yeah, third year. No, fourth year. A fourth year. Yeah, fourth year, my bad. A fourth year. That's everything that has happened. That's everything that has happened. Actually, no, 3 years, 3 years. My bad. My bad. Everything that has happened this season being hectic is what Ryan Pauls basically talked about in his press conference 10 months ago on why he brought Eberflus back. About rallying the troops when things get crazy. Blah, 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 blah. Everything that he talked about. Go watch that clip. Go watch that clip. Tapes Never Lie Network, or you can go find Shane Marsaw on Twitter. Go watch that clip. You watch every single mention that Ryan Pauls talked about. That's every single detail that has happened this year. Players turning the coach and losing the locker room. Things going crazy. And he had the full confidence. He can handle this. He can make sure to keep players on track. And then you watch today, and then you watch currently 10 months later, you see clearly that's not the case. The locker room completely lost trust in this dude, and they are basically going outcries against him. And this is what leads me to believe now that's why I'm on the basically part now where I'm starting to be out on Ryan Pauls. I'm starting to be like, he might need to go too, because he clearly does not know what he's doing. It's simple. It's simple. And if there's any rumors or any truth to these rumors that him and Kevin Warren don't like uncomfortable people, it's an absolute disgrace on Ryan Pauls that he does not like people that would make him feel uncomfortable. He came from Kansas City. I think guys like Andy Reid, Spagnola, the defensive coordinator, Dave Toub, and heck, even when Eric Bieniemy was there, he was a pretty hard-nosed coach that you could say made even players feel uncomfortable to the point they didn't really like his coaching style. But it was somewhat effective on the Chiefs, not anywhere else he went. But you get my point. He was around a whole bunch of coaches that was getting on being uncomfortable with you. But Ryan Pauls couldn't be able to handle somebody that is uncomfortable. So that's why he chose Eberflus. And that also leads to the offensive coordinator thing. This is the exact reason why they didn't hire Cliff Kingsbury, guy that even knew Caleb Williams last year from USC, because we know Eberflus didn't want to get an OC that is potentially bigger than him because his ego got in the way. And I've said this before. It's simple. The reason why he more than likely did not hire Cliff Kingsbury, even though that was probably the smart decision to do when you got Caleb Williams, because that's a dude that knows Caleb Williams from last year. It was simple. Eberflus didn't hire him because of his ego, because he knew if things went wrong, fans would be like, man, make Cliff Kingsbury the head coach. Fire this guy. Eberflus got in his head. He got too dang, quote unquote, egotistical. And because of it, he hired the wrong guy. But here's another thing in this whole thing. You look at the hierarchy of command, and you see one common denominator, and that's their agents. Let's start at the top. Kevin Warren. His agent is represented by none other than Bears former player, Trace Armstrong. The GM, Ryan Poles. His agent is also Trace Armstrong. The head coach, his agent, also Trace Armstrong. Shane Waldron, his agent, also Trace Armstrong. And if you want to understand something weird about this network too, the last offensive coordinator, guess what? Guess who his agent is too? Oh, let me guess for you. Trace Armstrong. So you see what I'm talking about? Your president, your GM, your head coach, and both your offensive coordinators this past season, or this season and last year, were under one single umbrella. And that's the Trace Armstrong umbrella. So let me get this straight. We're only going to hire guys that have ties and connections to Trace Armstrong in his agent network. So if we fire Eberflus, is Ryan Poles and Ryan Poles is still retained? Does that tell me he's going to hire somebody that has Trace Armstrong? Because if that's the case, if you want to be the Bears GM, fire whatever, or the Bears head coach, fire whatever freaking agent you got now and be Trace Armstrong's client. And so then guess what? We'll hire you right on the spot. The fact that your president, your GM, your head coach, and your two former offensive coordinators are all represented by the same agent tells me one of two things. It just smells like a whole bunch of shit in here. And that's that good old boy network. Good old boy network. Oh, we're cool with each other because we all got the same agent. You also have to wonder in this hiring circle, maybe they just also hired Shane Waldron because they felt more comfortable with him because he's a soft-spoken coach and is also hired by the same agent that they also are hired by, are clients of. It's an absolute joke. And it's even more of a joke when Keenan Allen comes out there and Keenan Allen has not played good this year, but and I don't he's one of the least people that can talk. But when Keenan Allen goes out there and says, yeah, in OTAs, he was not really holding people accountable and he was kind of soft spoken. Look, man, I don't want to take it away. He's a nice guy, but he wasn't doing the stuff necessarily during OTAs. So this guy was doing this nice guy act and doing all this BS during OTAs. OTAs back in like almost May. May is when OTAs are happening. And you're telling me this guy had this nice guy persona? At some point, why didn't you just fire him then? No, really just not fire him. Why didn't you hire him to begin with? But if you hired him and he still has this nice attitude, first things first, why you ain't fired him and why you ain't checking them and be like, get hard on these players, man. Also, too, why is no players bringing this to Eberflus's attention early on in the process? They went through OTAs, they went through freaking training camp, they went through preseason and all this other stuff. Or not just, well, actually, OTAs, mini camp, and then training camp. And none of the players spoke up and said, hey, man, I don't know about Shane Waldron, coach. He's been a little bit too nice to us. We want him to be harder on us. Nobody brought that to his attention. And of course, Eberflus won't check that stuff because he's more worried about the defense. He's more worried about defense. He's more worried about how he needs to game plan for the opposing opponent and practice for defense, thinking he's like some sort of defensive coordinator again. And then during games, while Shane Waldron's calling these dumbass plays, like the speed option on the goal line, or giving it to your freaking backups, fourth string center on the goal line to try to get a touchdown to take the lead against the Commanders. This guy is on the headset listening in on this whole situation, and he is not even worried about these bad play calls. He's more worried about what's the next defensive call I can play for the next defensive series. Because he doubles down just as much as Waldron did when it came to these stupid plays. Because you want to know why? Matt Eberflus was more worried about a stupid defensive play call because he's a freaking head coach masquerading as a defensive coordinator. Or no, actually, no, the other way around. He's a freaking defensive coordinator masquerading as a freaking head coach. Give up your play calling responsibilities as a defensive coordinator. Give it to Eric Washington so you can actually be a head coach and say on the headset, "We're not calling that, Shane." And the same thing will have to apply for Thomas Brown. If he hears in the headset that Thomas Brown is calling a stupid play call, say that, "Thomas, we're not doing that right now. I'm not trying to lose my job this time because that's what happened with Shane. I let him slide, and guess what? That's going to bite me in the ass." But he's going to be too worried about the next defensive play call he's got to make. And he'll let Thomas Brown, if he starts cutting up in the building and cutting up and making these stupid play calls, and he won't do nothing about it because he's worried about the next defensive play call. Because he's a defensive coordinator that's for some reason is a head coach that the damn GM won't fire. DJ Moore said he was shocked by the move. I don't know why he was shocked with his bitchy ass always pouting and crying and everything and not giving full effort. And he even confirmed he wasn't giving full effort. What a freaking disgrace. If as a head coach and I heard you say this in the press conference, I'm bringing you into my office and say, "You're telling me you weren't going all out?" Oh, hell no, we're not going to have this. You may not like Caleb Williams because you advocated to keep Justin Fields here, but this is your quarterback now. If you don't like to play with Caleb Williams, I will go to Ryan Poles and we'll see if we can work out a deal to trade you then. But you're the one that signed on the dotted line to be here. So we need you to have Caleb's back. And if you don't want to have it, I will revoke your seat and you'll be benched for a freaking week. Don't you ever tell the fact that he admitted that is absolutely disgusting. I have a lot of respect for DJ Moore, but the fact that he admitted he's been half-assing it is a joke. Keep that in your house. Keep that in thing. The fact that you're saying you're half-assing shit. That's disrespectful to your rookie quarterback who's trying to find his way to find help. It's disrespectful to your teammates. It's disrespectful to your other receivers in that room that you're half-assing it because you may be a little pissed off about play calls or how the quarterback's playing because it's not the guy you maybe wanted because you preferred the last guy that was here. Then you got Xavier McKinney from the Packers talking about, "I didn't like the way how he let Caleb out there to die and he walked off the freaking field." Referring to the fact that he walked up the field against the Cardinals, and he quote unquote said he was injured. Again, we don't know how DJ Moore felt. He might have been injured, he might have not. Regardless, he could have stayed on the sideline and watched how the play went out. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate to agree with a Packer, but Xavier McKinney is 100% right. Your young quarterback is trying, your teammate is trying to figure it out, and you're going to walk off. Even if you are hurt, just stand on the sideline then. Just stand on the sideline right then and there and watch the play develop. And then say, "Coach, I got to go out. My knee, my ankle is a little bit messed up." But no, he just walked off and went to the bench. And then obviously he came right back out the next play. What I'm talking about. He talking about, "Oh, we'll see on Sunday." Yeah, we'll see. Will you give me full effort against Jaire Alexander when he's guarding you? Because I need that. Will you be going 400% to help your young rookie quarterback figure it out? Because every time I hear them say, and they always ask me about his relationship with Caleb, he's always saying the PR response, "Oh, I'm good. We're good." Are you? Are you still butthurt that Ryan Poles traded away Justin Fields to draft Caleb Williams? Remember, he didn't have to sign the extension. He didn't have to. But he did. And he needs to step up and be a leader and help out his young quarterback. Obviously, Caleb Williams got to play better, but still. The fact that Caleb Williams announced that he barely had any interaction with Thomas Brown is a joke. It's a joke. It's a freaking joke, man. I guess I'll leave it off as a positive note. Thomas Brown talked to the media. I'll say this as I'm ending it off. He sounded like what a coach sounded like, and he sounded like the type of coach that this locker room needs. A no-nonsense coach that is willing to get up in your ass and tell you you need to work harder. Again, we have to see it to believe it. I enjoy what he said, but that's the same thing like I said 3 years ago. I liked the way Eberflus was talking in his introductory press conference. But here's the problem. What he said there is not applying to now. So I hope for Thomas Brown's sake, his play calling, it's smarter than Shane Waldron. It can be identical, but I hope it's smarter in certain situations. So then you're setting up Caleb Williams for success and not putting the Bears in harm's way because you want us to look or come across as the smartest guy in the room. I hope for Thomas Brown's sake, he's sensible. And I hope for Thomas Brown's sake, his offense is putting up scores, putting up points. We can still lose. But as long as he's putting up points and he's got the offense going in the right direction, I'm good. Because then that means you might have to consider him for potentially head coach. Potentially. But regardless, everything he said, I was cool with. I liked it. He spoke like an actual coach I've been dying to hear. And he spoke like a coach that I feel like this team actually needs to hear, especially that offense. But mostly just the team as a general. And mostly it's because he used to be a player. He played at Georgia. He played, or what is it? He played it for a bit in the NFL. He worked alongside Sean McVay. He was an assistant coach next to Sean McVay the year they won the Super Bowl. And he was very young into his coaching career at that point. If you're an assistant coach next to Sean McVay, that's a lot. That tells me a lot about, okay, you might actually be legit. You might not be a joke. But then again, the last guy was employed by Sean McVay, and he turned out to be a fraud. Hopefully, this is different with Thomas Brown. But the way he talked in his voice, it sounded 10 times better than anything Shane Waldron has ever said in his press conferences, or even including Matt Eberflus. I felt more confidence that, okay, this guy might actually turn this around. Obviously, I have to see it to believe it, but still, he sounded really good. And I liked what I heard. Hopefully, even if we do lose to the Packers, I hope he's able to get this offense putting points on the board. And by him maybe being in the booth might be good so he can see the entire field and see, okay, what is the defense doing? What formation are they going? We go this formation. Simple as that. So we'll see. We'll see how Thomas Brown does in his first game against play calling against the Packers. I guess the only thing going in his favor is the fact that when he play called against the Packers last year when he was a play call with the Panthers, they had a pretty damn good game. I think they still lost, but they had a damn good game. The offense did. So hopefully the only difference is we have a good game from our offense, but this time we win. Because let's just be honest, the Packers are going there, are going to come in here because they're going to be smelling blood. They're going to be knowing the Bears are on the freaking ropes. And if they lose in embarrassing fashion again, we're going to break them for the rest of the season. And they will just tap out and they'll be like, we're done. We made this change and we are still the exact same old Chicago Bears. And guess what? They lose to the Packers. This is a big week for the Bears. A big week for the Bears. My thing is this, they can still lose, but if they look productive in a loss, that will get their confidence spirits high to be like, okay, we can figure this thing out. We just got to win some game. We got to run the remaining games of our slate on our schedule. We got to look good. If they look good, if they get embarrassed again, and mind you, this is going to be America's game of the week with Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt calling this game, and they look pathetic and they go in an embarrassing fashion again and losing to the Packers like that in a bad fashion. Offense doesn't show up, the defense gets carved up. It's over. It's done. Realistically, it will be completely over. Because like I said, the Packers are gonna they come in here and they're gonna think, oh, they think making a coaching change with a deadbeat offensive coordinator is gonna change things for them. Their problem is still the head coach. We already know Matt LaFleur coaches circles around Matt Eberflus. Coaches circles. So it's a big game for the Bears. It's a big game for Thomas Brown. It's a big game for this character of this team. Because if they lose in embarrassing fashion, it's GG's. See you next year. But if they are competitive and they give a Packers a scare where the Packers, even though they come out on top, or maybe they've shocked the Packers and they beat them, they can get that confidence back. And maybe, just maybe, they start to have hope. Because right now, I got to be honest, this team needs a win desperately. Because if this team do not get a win anytime soon, it's over. And realistically, they get embarrassed against Green Bay, it's over. Just like how Jiren always tried to tell Goku when he would always look like to finish him off and turn him into power, it's over. No, it will be over if they get embarrassed by the Packers at Soldier Field. This is a must show up game for the Bears. I ain't going to say must win. Yes, it still must win, but it's must show up for the Bears. Show results. Results are your offense plays good football. Your defense gets stops. You have a chance to win, but you come up maybe short, or you do get the win. And you finally beat the Packers. Because this team needs some semblance of hope that, okay, whether we win or lose, if we can play really good football, maybe we have a chance. And we got a mediocre, average Vikings team up next at home. That's only going to make that game a lot more confident going into the game. Okay, we just slipped up a bit. We'll get you in Lambeau next time. But we'll see. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to catch you guys next video. Until then, guys, peace. Like the video if you like the video. Put your comment section on the stuff you thought about what I said. And yeah, anyways, till then, guys, peace.